Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another video, and this is actually going to be the first video in a set of 3 videos. In this set of 3 videos, really the series of videos, we're going to work through the new K2 room on TryHackMe. Now the K2 room is a room rated as hard, and it's really quite unique. It's actually a set of 3 different machines, which is why I'm doing this in 3 different parts, and this is part 1, and we get hands-on with a bunch of different things, everything from enumeration to SQL injection to web app enumeration to different Active Directory attacks. We begin by doing some web app stuff, then we're going to have 2 Active Directory machines that we have to exploit and elevate our privileges in. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and what I like about this is the information you get from one machine transfers over to the next machine. So I want to treat this a little bit like a workshop. I'm going to guide you through the process of exploiting these rooms, but I want to do more than just say, hey, here's how you do it, here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3. I want to do my best to teach as I go through it. So for those of you watching live right now, as we go through this, if there's anything unfamiliar, anything you have questions about that you want me to explain more, hey, please let me know. I'll be watching the chat as we go through this. And if you're watching this after the fact and you have questions, drop a comment. Believe it or not, I read all of the comments on my YouTube channel and I do my best to respond to them. So if you have a question, drop a comment on this video and I'll do my best to respond to you and at least do some research alongside of you and see if we can get an answer. And unfortunately, if you want to follow along, the K2 room is for subscribers only. Now, I really do think a subscription to TryHackMe is well worth the money, well worth the funds. If you do not have a sub to TryHackMe, really quick commercial, I'm doing a live stream with my friend Tiberius. You may have heard of him before. He's the maker of Auto Recon and just a wizard when it comes to hacking, also streams all of the time. But he and I are doing a live stream together in, I think that's a week from now. You have to check my YouTube channel to figure out the details on that. But at that live stream, we're going to be giving away a year-long premium voucher to TryHackMe to one person who is attending that stream. So if you don't have a sub, hey, check out the interview with me and Tiberius. You might just win a sub to TryHackMe. But this is a subscriber-only room, so if you aren't a sub, you won't be able to follow along hands-on, but I'll still showcase everything. So you'll still be able to learn right alongside of me. All right, without any further ado, let me go ahead and share my screen and let's dive into it. So the only thing I've done up to this point is I have connected to the VPN and I have launched the machines. Okay, get started. And we are beginning at base camp. And you can see K2, it's named after the mountain. It's this: are you able to make your way through the mountain? And we have 3 different tasks. Each task has a completely different machine, but they're all interconnected based on the enumeration that you do. So task 1, and in this video, we are going to begin at base camp. So here are the details. We have been asked to run a vulnerability test on the K2 network in order to see if there's any way that a malicious actor would be able to infiltrate it. The IT team assures you that the network is secure and that you won't be able to make your way up the mountain. We will see about that. They have only provided you with their external website called k2.thm. Please allow 3 to 5 minutes for the VM to fully start. So step 1 is we have an IP and we have a website. So let's go ahead and grab our IP right there. We'll go over to our terminal and we'll choose sudo nano etc host. Type in our password, and we're going to want to add this IP here. I'll hit the tab key on my keyboard, and we'll do k2.thm, for that's the name of their web server, and we'll go ahead and save it, make sure I can ping it. And we can. So we are connected to the TryHackMe network, and we have that in our etc host file. Now, what I just did, if you're kind of new to this whole world of ethical hacking, the etc host file on Linux is what resolves an IP address to a domain name, just so we don't have to remember the IP every single time. You can kind of think about your phone. When you are on your cell phone, you have a phone book in your phone. So if you're calling your friend, let's just say John, you don't have to remember John's number. You just call John's name, and your phone book connects John's name to his number. Well, that's kind of what etc host is like. It's connecting the host name, for us that's k2.thm, to the IP address of this web server that we are attacking. Now, generally we would do an in-map scan, and honestly we can do that. We could do a Rust scan is what I like to use, which I don't even have Rust scan installed, so I can show you how to install that. You could also just use classic old nmap, which maybe we'll just do that for the sake of learning, and because nmap is built into Kali Linux, so we could do nmap -p- to see all the ports that are running. We are told told it's just an external website, and if we're treating this like a pen test, well, the website is what's in scope. So there shouldn't be a bunch of hidden services running, but we'll check anyway. So we'll do -p- and we'll do k2.dhm and T5 just to make it fast, and PN to ignore host discovery, just assume the host is up. Oh, you know, one last thing, I like to do verbose mode so I can see the ports as they are discovered. So you can see right away, we have two ports. We have port 80, which is a common port for HTTP or a web server, and we have port 22, which is SSH or secure shell. Now, port 22 isn't super helpful to us because we don't have credentials, and it's unlikely SSH is going to be the primary way into a machine. But we do have port 80, which is a web server, and we can see based on the scope that our client gave us, if we're treating this like a pen test, that we're only provided with their external website called k2.thm. So we can go ahead and begin doing some basic website enumeration on here, and there's a few different things that I like to do when it comes to website enumeration. We'll just open up our little notepad right here, our mouse pad. Usually I use Notion to take notes, but you know what? We'll just go old school and we'll use mousepad, and we'll just say our web server to-do list, like things that we want to check. Here's a few things I always check on a web server. We'll use like dir search for directory brute forcing. If I can type, there we go. We can look for VHost fuzzing. That means there might be multiple web servers on one IP known as VHost or virtual hosts. I'll show you how we can fuzz for them. We can also just browse the website, see if there's anything interesting on there. We can check the source code. We can check robots.txt. Sometimes there's something interesting there that's a directory that we're not supposed to check out. But those are some good things to get started with. So before we even start manually browsing the website, let's get some of our scans up and running. So we'll open up our terminal. And you can see here's Nmap. I don't think it's going to discover anything else. So we're just going to stop that scan. And we can just rename this tab dir search. And we'll type dir search like so. I believe it's -u, and we're going to pass it our URL of k2.dhm. And that's really all we need to do for dir search. It has a word list built into it, which honestly works pretty well. And so we'll just use that there. Over here, we're going to do our VHost fuzzing. We'll just call this VHost fuzzing. And one thing I want to do is I have a bunch of tools in my GitHub for VHost fuzzing and for Active Directory that's going to come in handy later. So if you want to follow along, you can grab these tools as well. If we just go to github.com, Tenebrae93 is my GitHub. We'll go to my little offensive security repo right here. And I'm just going to copy the whole thing down. We'll copy to clipboard. And we'll make a directory, we'll call it Q2, or K2 rather, and we'll git clone my offensive security tools. There we go. And one of these offensive security tools that I created is this VHost fuzzer. Let's go to make everything executable. X wildcard, that should work. There we go, it did. So if we run our VHost fuzzer with a -h, you can see here's what it's doing. Now, there's nothing magical, guys, about my VHost fuzzer. It literally just uses fuff. I just always forget the syntax for fuzzing for VHost. Don't know why, I can never get it in my head, but because I always forgot it, I was like, screw it, I'm gonna make a little bash script so I don't have to try to remember the syntax when I'm fuzzing for VHost. So we can just follow this. If we do VHost fuzzer, it says we need our domain, which is k2.thm. We need a word list. We can just use something like this, 2.3 medium.txt. There are better word lists out there, but I like to start with this one. Usually it does a pretty good job. Then we need the URL, which is k2.thm. And then we need an FS filter, which is a filter by size. We don't know what size to filter on, so we're just going to do 1. Let it run, and you can see this size right here, 13229. We want to change our FS filter to 13229, like so. And we will let our VHost fuzzer run, which you can actually see right away. We have found a few different VHosts. We have an admin VHost and an IT VHost. And our dir search, at least on the main k2.thm, didn't find anything. So we know that we have 2 new VHosts here. Now, in order for our computer really to detect those VHosts, we need to add these now to our etc hosts. The way we can do that is we'll do sudo nano etc host again. Go over to our k2.thm, and we'll just add it here, like admin.k2.thm and it.k2.thm, and we will save it. Now, knowing that we have 2 more VHosts, that's sort of like 2 more web servers, we can go ahead and start running dir search on those. So let's do that, dir search /u, admin.k2.thm, And we'll make another tab. We'll call this dir search IT. And we'll do dir, so not typing, dir search-u it.k2.thm like so. We'll just put those together. It's not, doesn't look like it's finding any other vhost, but we'll let these go ahead and scan the vhost that we have found while we now do some manual enumeration. Now you can use Burp Suite for this. You can use OWASP Zap. I enjoy Cato. Let me just stop sharing my screen for just a moment while I connect to Cato. A lot of good chat about Cicada. I need to check out that machine on Hack the Box. All right, here we go. We have it. Let's create a project. We'll call this K2, and we'll just call this one K2 Basecamp. And we will create that. Go over to Intercept, open up the built-in browser. And we'll see what's going on. Hey, what is up, everyone? Looking at chat. Hello, Muhammad. Hack smarter, not harder. Absolutely. We got Kofi Arthur. Good to see you again as well, my friend. All right, let's first just check out this base website. K2.thm. Is there anything interesting on here? So loading slowly. Hey, I actually used this same template for a CTF machine I made. Welcome to K2 IT Services. We are here to serve you. What's our intro? Blah, just text. Okay, amazing. About. So very much is a web page. Nothing too interesting. And it doesn't actually send anything, so that's not going to be eligible for any cross-site scripting. We can view the page source, but this is just a typical kind of marketing type website. Nothing really interesting going on there. And we did discover those other vhosts, so we can go ahead and check those out. If we look back at our tab, hey, and we actually found register on the IT one. On the admin one, we found a dashboard and a logout. It doesn't really lead anywhere. And our vhost fuzzing isn't finding anything else. I'm just going to stop that. We just have those two vhosts, IT and admin. So let's go ahead and check out those vhosts. We'll go to admin.k2.thm. All right, admin IT ticket view. Enter your username and enter your password. Now I want to ask you to think for just a moment. You can drop it in the chat if you want to. But what would be some things to check on a login screen like this? Even pause my video. I want you to think about that to yourself. There's always a few things I check. The first thing to check to see if there's any just common usernames and passwords in use. So for example, we could try admin, sign in, no luck. We could try admin password, no luck, right? We can try root, no luck. The other thing I like to try is just to proxy the request and let's see what's going on. Maybe there's something interesting we can modify. We'll go ahead and hit sign in. Send that over to replay like so. Hit send. And nothing interesting here. Incorrect username or password. One thing I always like to check for as well is SQL injection. And a really easy way to check for SQL injection is just a single quote. We'll hit send on that and nothing. Now, if it's vulnerable to SQL injection, you'll often get a 500 response or a server error because our SQL injection, our SQL character there caused it to fail, but it doesn't look like the admin IT ticket view, at least the login screen, is vulnerable to any type of SQL injection. So we checked common usernames, common passwords. If we had a username, we could try brute forcing with Hydra or even with Kaido to brute force the password, but we don't even have any usernames to begin with. We can go ahead and look at the source code. Is there anything interesting in the source code? And there really isn't. So nothing too interesting in admin. Let's go ahead and check out that IT one though. it.k2.thm. So another similar thing here, log into IT ticket system, enter your username and enter your password. Don't have an account, sign up here. So let's see if we can sign up for an account, and we can. So enter our username. We'll do hack smarter. And our password, hacksmarter123, same thing I use for my bank. And we'll just say hacker@hacksmarter.org. We'll go ahead and turn on Kaido's proxy again and see what this request looks like. All right, we'll send that over to replay so we can mess around with it, but we're passing it a username, a password, and an email. Let's just go ahead and send this through, see if it works. And it redirects us. That's cool. What if we do it again? Okay, so if we were doing a pen test or even a bug bounty, this would be considered a finding if there's no rate limiting on the endpoint. Did you see what just happened? If I try to register the same email twice, it says account already exists, and that can be used for username enumeration. So legit, if you're doing a bug bounty program and you find username enumeration on a registration form, the next step to do is, can you automate the process? Can you send at least 50 requests with nothing stopping you? And if you can, that's a valid finding. That's not a big finding, it's more of a low finding, but this would be a finding if we were doing a pen test on username enumeration on account registration. But we were able to make an account, Hack Smarter and Hack Smarter 123. Let's go ahead and just log into this account. We'll go to sign in, and we'll do Hack Smarter and Hack Smarter 123. And we are signed in. It says, hello, please submit a ticket. Now, I want to make sure I'm not missing anything in chat. What is fuzzing? What does it do and how does it work? Good question, Nightcart. So fuzzing really depends on the context. Generally what fuzzing is doing is you're sending a bunch of different characters to an input field. It might be a login form, maybe it's a ticket form like we're looking at now, and we're just sending it different characters that might cause an error. And we're seeing if we can get sometimes a verbose error message. If you send an application something that's not expecting, it might reveal some version information on the back end, or you might see some indication that it's vulnerable to a SQL injection attack or a server-side template injection attack. But fuzzing is just sending a bunch of different characters and saying, hey, what happens when we mess with this? We got, hey, what is up, my good friend Xerox Bob? Thank you for dropping in on LinkedIn. Good to have you here. 3:30 in the morning. Amazing. Mohammed said, I've been up all night waiting for your live stream, and now it's 6 a.m. Dude, thank you so much for staying awake. I appreciate that. Yeah, good answers, MK, over in chat. All right, so we have this. Please submit your ticket. So we can just say, please subscribe. I can't even type, though. And hello, friend. Let's just see what this looks like. If we intercept this with Kaido and we hit submit, drop that over to replay, hit send. It just says ticket submitted successfully. It will be reviewed shortly. Now, I want you guys to think about this. We have a ticket here, and we can submit a title, and we can submit a description in this ticket, and it says it will be reviewed shortly. Let me ask those of you in chat, what is something you think is worth trying in light of the context that we have so far? We'll see if anyone gets this before I do it. I also know chat's the live stream is a little bit behind me in real time, so I'll give you a second. But what is something you think we should try? SQL injection, maybe, but the reason, we could try SQL injection. Like, I can even try it right here. We'll just do a single quote. And that doesn't seem to be vulnerable. Single quote. That doesn't seem to be vulnerable because we're getting a 200 response. Oh, Abel, I didn't see your message. Cross-site scripting. Exactly. So as soon as I saw this, when I was going through this myself, actually alongside with, I'm going to say your name wrong, Matthias, Bob is what I call him. I was going through this with him, we kind of worked on this machine together. As soon as I saw this, I knew, okay, there's some type of cross-site scripting going on here because we're submitting it to a ticket system. We see that we have a cookie right here for a session. We're submitting a ticket, and it says it's going to be reviewed by someone. But we, of course, can't see the results of it. Generally, when there's cross-site scripting, it might be stored or reflected on the page, and we can submit a cross-site scripting payload, some JavaScript here, and we can see it reflected on the page, and we know right away, hey, this is vulnerable to cross-site scripting, but here it is not reflected. So we would need to test blind cross-site scripting, and there's a few different ways we can do this. I'll show you an easy way. The first thing that we want to do is first rename my tabs, the terminal. I always like my tabs named based on what I'm doing. I don't know why. And I've also had some questions. How do I rename tabs like that on Kali? On your keyboard, it's Alt-Shift-S, right? That's my hotkey. You always see me do Alt-Shift-S on your keyboard, and you can rename your tabs. But we can go ahead and start a Python web server just so we can see any HTTP request that comes through. So we'll start our Python web server, and then over here in Kaido, we can do a basic payload like, I don't think this one will be blocked. It might be blocked, and we'll try something else. We'll do script source, and we'll try to just hit our IP of 10.13.46.224, and we'll call this one the description.text because that's the field, and then we know, hey, if this is the one that triggers, this is the field. So we'll do script there. I think my syntax is correct. We'll have to URL encode it in a second, but let's also do it for the title, except for the title, we're going to change it from description to title.text. So we know if one of these triggers, we know which field is vulnerable to cross-site scripting. We also need to URL encode it. So we'll go to convert, replace, URL encode, and we'll do the same thing here. Convert, replace, URL encode like so, and we will click send. Okay, it says ticket submitted successfully. It will be reviewed shortly. Now, while we wait for that, let me get back down in chat because I scrolled up. When it comes to cross-site scripting, it's using JavaScript. Now, if you're applying for a pen testing job, it's important to keep in mind the difference between client-side code and server-side code. JavaScript is client-side code. So generally speaking, you're not going to get like RCE with a cross-site scripting payload, but you are able to attack other users. So what we're hoping is going to happen is as our ticket goes through and it's in the system, maybe a user, an admin might view our ticket, and when the admin views our ticket, our JavaScript executes and it does a callback to us to see, hey, we know what field is vulnerable to this. And you can actually see it right here. It works successfully. You can see right now the admin is currently clicking on this and getting our description.text. So then we know, hey, we did successfully discover cross-site scripting, and specifically in the description field. So there is no cross-site scripting payload in the title, but there is cross-site scripting here in the description, right? So pwned. That is where the payload is, and that's what is vulnerable to cross-site scripting. Now, we also see that we have a cookie right here, specifically a session cookie. Now, if our cookie is not secure, if it doesn't have the HTTP only flag, we might be able to steal another user's cookie, and we can go ahead and check that. If we go here in Chrome, more tools, developer tools, and I believe it's application, we have cookies here for this. And I can make this big, hopefully. Let me see if I can scroll in for you guys. So you can see our session cookie right here. It does not have the HTTP only flag or the secure flag being set, which means if we can execute JavaScript in another user's browser, we could actually steal their session cookie. And if we were doing this as a legit pen test, this would be another finding. This would be a session cookie set without the HTTP only flag or the secure flag, which is bad practice because a malicious actor could steal some information there. So things all pointing to ways we can abuse this with cross-site scripting. Let me look at chat and make sure I'm not missing any questions here. A writer says, should I include black hat activities on a resume if I'm migrating into cyber from networking? No, you shouldn't. Happy hacking, Tyler Friends. Hey, happy hacking. Yeah, thank you for doing this. Thank you, Jay, for hanging out. I appreciate it. I don't understand the Python command you just wrote. I'm not sure, Z, what Python command you're talking about, unless you're talking about JavaScript. If you mean this Python command, so this is just a very basic Python command that hosts a web server, right? So we can host a web server, and then anyone on the TryHackMe same VPN subnet that I'm on can go to my web server, and that's all we're doing. So for example, if I host Python 3 HTTP server 80, I'm hosting a web server right now, and we can actually go to my own web server. Let me go ahead and turn off intercept real quick. And we can go to HTTP 10.13.46.224. That's my IP. And there is my web server right there. So we can host a web server, and when our user clicked our malicious JavaScript, it reached out to our actual web server, and then we're like, hey, here's where it's vulnerable in the description field. So with our JavaScript, I can show you how to do this manually, but I also want to test out a script that I created it and I haven't tested it. So I'm actually hoping it works. I created it when I was going through this room after manually stealing the cookie. Let me go ahead and check out this script and let's see if it works. I hope it does. But I threw it together real quick. But I created this script, this cross-site scripting cookie stealer, because I always forget the syntax for stealing session cookies. So this script will set up a PHP web server for stealing the cookies and provide the payload that you need. It automates the process of setting up a simple PHP server to capture cookies via cross-site scripting. It generates a cross-site scripting payload, creates a web server directory, and runs a PHP server that logs victim cookies to a file. You can see it generates the payload, blah, blah, everything I already talked about, and also shows you how to run this script. So let's go ahead and see if my script actually works. I'm going to go, I'll copy this and I'll drop it in the chat if you guys want to check this out as well. There it is. And I'm going to go ahead and just git clone this. We'll jump over to my terminal and we will git clone my cookie stealer script. We will go into it. And there it is. So this script creates a web server directory, blah, blah, for capturing cookies. And then starts a PHP server on port 80 to serve these files. So we need to provide the IP as a parameter and the script will echo the payload. So let's go ahead and give that a shot. We'll do the same command, but we're going to give it our IP. Yours is going to be different than mine if you're following along, but mine is 10.13.46.224, and we will hit enter. We need sudo rights so we can set up the web server. And there we go. We have our PHP web server running and we have our script right here, or our payload. But let me show you what's going on behind the scenes. So if we look at this script, it should be pretty easy to follow. Not overly complicated at all. Even if you don't know Python, let me zoom in for you. So we have a function right here that's creating the web server, and all this is doing is making a web server directory, and then it's going to store some PHP really in that directory so we can steal files. We also have a script, a JavaScript script here. All this is doing is stealing the document.cookie from our victim user. So hopefully we can steal their session cookie, and we're calling that script.js and saving that to our web server that we just set up. We also have our PHP file right here, the index.php, which is just doing PHP in order to steal the script. Let me close that out. So you can see here, it's going to actually write the cookies to our file so we can see the victim cookie, which we're going to see down here. But you can do this all manually. It's relatively easy. You just create a web server, you create a script.js with this content in it, and index.php with this content in it, and then you run the PHP server on port 80. You need sudo rights to run this port 80. That's why it prompts for sudo. But this is a very, very, very simple Python script. The reason I created it is every time I need to steal a session cookie, I always forgot the syntax. So feel free to use this, make it awesome, customize it, do whatever you want. Oh, yo, we got Adrian. Thank you, Ready, Set, Exploit, the creator of the room, for dropping by. I appreciate you stopping by. And dude, amazing work on these 3 machines. I really, really enjoyed them. Some of my favorite machines on TryHackMe. But here is our script. We just ran it. You can run it as well. And as I said before, it gives us the exact payload that we need to use. So we will go ahead and grab this payload. Remember, we identified that the description field is what was vulnerable, so we'll just put in our payload there. Everything looks good to me, and we'll go ahead and URL encode this. Also zoom in for you guys if I can. There we go. We'll URL encode it, and we will click send. All right, ticket submitted successfully. It will be reviewed shortly. And you can see we already stole the user session cookie right there. So we can grab our session cookie. I will copy that. And in our sweet notes right here, we'll just drop it. So we'll say stolen session cookie. We got it there. So our script did everything it did. So if you want to steal session cookies easily, use my script. It literally does all the work for you, including gives you the payload so you can steal the cookie. But there we go. We can go ahead and stop our web server now. We were able to steal the session cookie. Now, what can we do with the session cookie? Well, if we remember, we had this admin.k2.thm vhost, And we have a dashboard that is a 302, which means it redirects to the login because we don't have a login there. We only have an account on the IT portal that allows us to submit tickets. We do not have an account on the admin portal, and there's no way to register for an account on the admin portal, but we now have a session cookie. So we can now do our elite hacking skills and see if we can log in. So let's give this a shot. We'll go back over to admin.k2.whatever, and let's download, I think it's like cookie editor extension, maybe? Yeah. Let's add this extension. It's also for Firefox, so just use whatever browser you're using. And we will go over to our cookie editor. And we'll just say all sites, allow, YOLO. Here's our cookie editor, and we're gonna add a cookie. And if we go back over to Kaido, we can see the cookie right here. It's just a session cookie. So cookie and then session. And I'm so glad that it closes out when I leave it. We'll call it session. And then we need to grab our session cookie from right here that we stole. Oh my goodness, come on. All right, session, paste it in, save. Now if we go to dashboard, boom, we were able to steal the session cookie using cross-site scripting and then set the session cookie as us and then log into the admin portal, and we are now at the ticket review. And there's a few pieces of information that we can see here. You can see my Hack Smarter one right here. And I bet if we inspect this, can we see the payload? And we can, so we can actually see the payload right here that was embedded in there by me. So you can see instead of escaping or sanitizing our characters, it actually embedded our script there, which is why we were able to exploit the admin user when they viewed our ticket. But when we look at this, we have a few pieces of information that would be important to us. First, we have some username enumeration. So we have a username Smokey, we have a username Hazel, and we have a username Paco. And we have, hey, my computer won't start. Yo, what's my password, blah, blah. So that's worth noting down, I think. So we have Smokey, Hazel, and Paco. So we can just add that to our notes. Maybe it'll come in handy later. Username enumeration. We have Smokey, Hazel, Paco. And now let's see what this actually does. We'll zoom in. It says select ticket title. So if I select help and hit submit, it gives us all of the help tickets. I'll go back to my dashboard. We can see what this looks like in Kaido. Let's intercept that request. Go over to replay, hit send. And so it's just passing it as the title. It's not necessarily reflected here. So let me ask chat again. We have a title parameter here, and it's pulling up different tickets. What do you think this might be vulnerable for? What do you guys think I should test? I'm gonna get a drink of water, and you tell me. Abel said, are these kinds of cross-site scripting attacks commonly encountered in the OSCP, or should I focus more on other types of vulnerabilities? It's not commonly encountered on the OSCP. I would recommend focusing on other types of vulnerabilities. Technically, though, the official OffSec language is anything in the Pen 200 course can be tested on the exam, and I believe this type of attack is on the Pen 200 course. So it's good to be aware of it. Just use my Python script if you run into it, and it will help you along the way, but you probably won't encounter it. I can't say for sure, but I would recommend focusing on other attacks for the OSCP. Okay, Muhammad said SQL injection, MK said directory traversal, LFI, SQL injection, perhaps LFI. So we have a tie between a few things, but I see SQL injection a lot. And the reason you should kind of be thinking SQL injection is it seems that our title is pulling from a database, a SQL database. Now, if you think about what might be going on here, it's asking us for a title, and it's pulling all of the tickets that match our title. So you might think if this was a SQL command, it could be like select, right, title from, or select, it would be select where description equals title from tickets, something like that. Like that could be the query it's doing on the back end. But one easy way to test for SQL injection, which I've already showed you on some of our login forms, is just do a single quote and let's see what happens. And you can see when we do a single quote, we get a 500 internal error. That's usually a pretty good sign that this might be vulnerable to SQL injection, because what if we close out our quote with another one and it's no longer vulnerable? Well, it is vulnerable. It no longer errors out because we have now closed our SQL query. So this is a very, very good sign that it's vulnerable to SQL injection. Kofi said, can you use ChatGPT to create scripts with the OSCP boxes? You can, just not during the exam. Do not use ChatGPT during the exam. You will automatically fail. But leading up to the exam, you can, for sure. But okay, we see this might be vulnerable to SQL injection. There's a few different ways we can exploit this. One common tool that people use is called SQL Map. Now, if you are studying for the OSCP, you are not allowed to use this tool, so it's good to know how to do things manually, which I'm going to show you. But this is a tool a lot of people use, and even using in pen tests, that helps automate a lot of the SQL injection process, but it doesn't always work. You still need to know how to do this manually. And let me just show you how we could do this. If we go ahead and grab this post request, I'm going to copy this request. We're going to open up our terminal, and we can close these out. I think we're done with our directory searching there. We'll do nano post.txt, and I'm just going to drop that full post request in there. So you can see that this is the full post request I copied over from Kaido. We can do SQL map -r. We can pass it the post.txt, and it will go ahead and try to detect a SQL injection. So it says, hey, you provided a cookie header. The URL provides its own cookies, blah, blah. Do you want to merge them? Sure, let's see what happens. And it says we got a redirect. Well, look at this. There is a WAF, or a web application firewall, active, and it's detecting our SQL map payloads, and it's literally catching us in the act and terminating our session. All right, attack detected, session terminated. No, we don't want to follow. Let's see if we're able to still push through. Considerable lagging has been detected. It is recommended, blah, blah. Do you want to reduce the number of requests? We always want to reduce the number of requests, so we'll say yes. And you can see, hey, all tested parameters do not appear to be injectable, but that doesn't mean they aren't rejectable. They aren't injectable. Remember, we got caught right away by this web application firewall. Attack detected, session terminated. So it may just be us spraying it with SQL Map is not going to be the way to go. There might be some tweaks you can make to SQL Map to bypass this, but I think it's good, although it can be more difficult, to exploit SQL injection manually. Now, for those of you studying for the OSCP, I would encourage you to lean in here, because this may be something you encounter on the exam. And once again, you are not allowed to use SQL Map on the exam. So on the OSCP, if you use SQL Map, you will automatically fail, because that's a tool that is banned due to automatic exploitation. Do with that as you will, but you're not allowed to use it. So let's go back over to this. Once again, we can verify that we have SQL injection, right? We get that 500 server error. And one thing that we can do is try to get the version information. We can try a bunch of different payloads. So let's go ahead and try that. If we just go to like SQL injection, GitHub intruder, we'll see what kind of things that we can find. We'll see this payload list. We'll check out a few of these, see if they're any good. Intruder. We have detect. We'll do MySQL. We'll try this. So that's detecting. I guess that wouldn't really be helpful to us because we already know it's there. Yeah, these payloads aren't going to be super helpful. What's this? Generic SQL injection. You know, I don't know if these are going to do anything. We can try it, though. We'll just spray it with all of these. So I think someone asked before, what is fuzzing? This is kind of what we're going to do now. I'll show you how we can do some very minor fuzzing. I'm going to do Control-M to send this over to automate. And this is one of the reasons, I don't know why I didn't save it, I like Kaido more than Burp Suite Community Edition. Burp Suite Community Edition has Intruder, but it's super rate limited and honestly not practical. Even the free version of Kaido does not rate limit you on these kind of attacks. So let's go ahead and set our marker there. We'll just do a simple list, and we'll paste in our long list. Whoa. There we go. Paste in our long list. Go to preprocessors, URL encode is fine. We'll put our workers at 20 because YOLO, and we'll hit run. And you can see right now we are just fuzzing it. Nothing too interesting here. What even was this payload? Oh, that was a blank payload. Okay, so you can see, look at these. Attack detected and session terminated. A lot of these, attack detected and session terminated. Right, that's not doing anything for us. What are these? These are the 500 errors, confirming it, and then all these are just 1641. I'm looking at the length. If you're wondering what I'm looking at, you want to see if there's any discrepancy on the length. What we are going to do, see if there's anything interesting here, is some union injection. I'll show you this. And there's probably multiple ways to do this. MK said this wouldn't be allowed in the OSCP either because it's automated. No, this is allowed. That's not automated exploitation. That's just fuzzing. So what I just did is allowed on the OSCP because it's not automatically exploiting it for you. You are just fuzzing it. Whereas SQL map, if SQL map works, you can literally dump databases, dump creds and everything all automatically. You just say, hey, from this database, from this table, dump everything. You don't have to do it. Whereas this, we're kind of just discovering what is going on. So when an application is vulnerable to SQL injection and the results of the query returned, you can use the union keyword to retrieve data from other tables within the database. This is commonly known as a SQL injection union attack. It allows you to execute one or more additional select queries and append the results to the original query, determining the number of columns required. Union, null, 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 null. I'll show you guys how all of this works in person. So one thing that we can do is see if we can get version information. So we will do our quote here, union, select, null, null, version. Now, when I was doing this in real time, I literally just asked ChatGPT, hey, I found some possible SQL injection. What is a manual way I can exploit it? Because to be honest with you guys, I suck at SQL injection, and ChatGPT gave me this payload. So I was like, all right, let's give it a shot. We'll go ahead and URL encode it, hit send. And you can see we have version information right there, MySQL version and the Ubuntu version on the back end. But what we need to do is, and I kind of already did it here, but is determine the number of columns. Now there's a few different ways we can do this. Let me go back over to automate here, and we'll just go to this. I'm going to change our list right here, and to determine the number of columns, we are going to do some union selects, but with different nulls until we get one that no longer returns an error. And I kind of got ahead of myself just a second ago, but we can do a union select null for the first one. I think it's just like that. Let me actually check my notes, make sure I'm not missing anything here for us. Yeah, okay, I'm doing it right. Beautiful. I never know when it comes to SQL injection. If you guys are confused about SQL injection a lot, so am I. I always have to reread and refigure out how to exploit it and detect it, especially when I'm doing it manually and SQL map doesn't come to my rescue. But we can do this a few different times. And what we're looking for is we want to figure out how many columns there are. And when it no longer errors out, we know that we found the right number of columns. We're just going to keep appending null to it. We'll do it a few times. And once again, everything I'm doing right now is allowed on exams like the OSCP because although we're fuzzing, it's not automatically exploiting it for us. I think that's a good number to stop with. Hopefully my syntax is correct there. We have URL encode, which is fine. Let's go ahead and run this. Oh no. What is happening? None of my other requests are going through. Is it because at 500 errors? Well, no, because the other ones work just fine. Huh. Isn't that odd? Oh, there we go. Okay, now they're going through. So you can see 500 error on our null. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It errors out. It errors out on this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. But this one, it does not error out. So it has union select null, null, null. So there we know that we have 3 columns that we are working with. If I'm understanding union SQL injection correctly, those of you in chat, correct me if my language is wrong here, but I always confuse myself on SQL injection. No matter how many rooms or courses I do on it, it's always just a little bit outside of my grasp for some reason, right? But I'm usually able to kind of wrestle my way through it. But we know that we have this. So let's go back over to intercept. We can turn this off. And let's go over to replay here. What we need to do now is figure out, hey, what tables are here? What tables can we pull information from? And we can do that kind of how we've been doing it. We're going to do a union. Just if I can't spell. Union select. We want to select the table name. And now we discovered that there's 3 columns here. So we'll do null, null, and then on the 3rd column, we want to do the information we want. So for tables, we want to get the information schema of the tables where table schema equals database, boom. Now, I'm not super smart. I didn't know that right away. This is me doing a lot of Googling to figure out the right payload in order to get table information. But we can grab this, right click, URL encode, and click send. And it errors. So that is awesome. I didn't think it would error, but I guess it will. Did I do not? Okay, union select, table name. I think I have something wrong with my syntax. Null, null. That was right? We discovered 3 columns. Oh, try that. I think that's what I was missing. URL encode, send. Nope. Okay, I was missing something else. URL decode. All right, union select table name null, null. I don't think we need that comma there. I'll eventually get this payload right. URL encode, send. Fingers crossed. Nope. Nope. I still don't have it. Union select table name. Okay, that's all correct, I'm pretty sure. For those of you better than SQL injection, tell me where my syntax is wrong here. Null, null. That's correct. From information underscore schema dot tables where table schema equals database. What the heck? Oh, here. Where do you guys? Union select table name no from. Let me here, let me look at my actual notes from this. Okay. Let me try this. That's literally the payload I have. I did do it right. Let me try this again. Oh, what the heck did I do differently? Okay, I missed something there, but look what we have here. We have admin auth, auth users, and tickets. Now, the original query was, of course, pulling from the tickets. Remember, it was looking for, was it description or title? I don't remember what it was. It was description or title, pulling it from there. But now we see we have a few different tables. We have 3 tables, admin auth, auth users, and tickets. Now, of course, we would be interested in some of the column names of maybe auth users, for example. So we'll just even retype this out, because although we could copy and paste from our previous one, I think it's good to build muscle memory and type it all out and make mistakes as you type, because that will help you learn it better. So let's do union select. We now want to do the column name, and then we need to do our 2 nulls. From information schema and our columns this time, where table name, and now we want the admin auth table, of course. So we will say where table name equals admin underscore auth, and then comment out the rest of the query with that. Let's give that a shot. Okay, beautiful. So in here we have in our admin auth table, we have admin password, admin username, email, and ID. Now we're of course most interested in admin username and admin password. So let's see if we can now get that information. So similar to what we've been doing, we'll do union select admin username and admin password. We need to do our null from admin auth table, and then comment out the rest of the query. Right click URL encode like so, then hit send. And boom, we have some usernames and passwords, ladies and gentlemen. We got Ash, we got Zoo, we got Kate, we got Steve, we got Bob, we got Rose, we got James. All right, let's grab all of them. We'll just copy all of them for now up here. And we'll go over to our notes, our very, very basic notes. And we'll say usernames and passwords from SQL Injection. Okay. Now, if this was confusing to you guys, it's confusing to me as well. And when it comes to SQL injection, you really don't have to obsess over it that much, because if you're going to be a pen tester, which is what I do, first of all, I don't discover SQL injection very often in real web apps. I have a few times. Maybe I just suck at discovering it. Honestly, that could be the case. But when you discover SQL injection, when you're doing a typical pen test, all you need to do is report to the client, hey, SQL injection is in here. And generally that's by doing a time-based payload where you just cause the app to delay its response based on the payload. Generally speaking, you're not actually having to exfiltrate data like we just did, unless it's a red team engagement. And red teaming and pen testing are two different things. Red team is when you emulate like an APT or an advanced persistent threat, but typically for the purpose of pen testing, you just need to find the SQL injection and report it. You don't actually exploit it in the client's web app. But here we did exploit it, and we have a few different users. So one thing that we can do is, we know SSH is open on here. Let's just try to SSH in as each one of these users and see if any of them work. So we will SSH as James at k2.thm. We'll say yes. Jump over to this and grab James' password. Oops. Like so. Oh, we're already in. So the first user works. So we can add that information maybe. Like I said before, I usually use Notion for taking notes. Apparently I'm using Notepad now, but we'll say SSH access. We have James and then his password right there. But now we have access to SSH. If we LSLA, we see user.text right there. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment. I think we can get that right away. And we can. Okay. But I don't want to get the answer for you. So even if you're following along with this, don't just steal flags from my video. Complete the room yourself. Go through all the steps that I'm going through so that you get hands-on keyboard time so you can do this as well. But we have SSH access, and you can now read user.text by doing cat user.text, but I'll let you do it yourself and get the flag for the machine. The other information we want to get is what users are on the machine. We can do this a few different ways. If we cd back though to home, we can do ls at LA, and you can see that we have James and we have Rose. And did we see Rose on here? We did. So we have Rose's password right here. One might wonder, can we just switch over to Rose? Would that work? And we can try it. We can do switch user Rose, put in the password. And we are unsuccessful. So before we run things like linps, it's helpful to do some basic enumeration. So we can do ID, to see what groups we are in. And when I run ID, let me ask those of you in chat, does anything interesting stand out to you? And if so, what stands out to you that might be interesting? Okay, Ali, let me answer your question while I wait for people. As a freshly graduated student, I work as a junior pen tester. Sometime on a pen test, if I do not find findings, I stress about it. No, you don't need to stress about it. I think a lot of junior pen testers do stress about that. And that's the difference, guys, between a pen test and a CTF. CTF machines are vulnerable by design. When you're doing a pen test, you're doing a real company's web app that is quite hardened and quite secure. So at times you will not find anything. You'll only find informational bugs. That's fine. What I tend to do when that happens to me is I try to give the client a long list of strengths. So instead of a long list of vulnerabilities, I give them like 10, 12, or 15 different strengths, demonstrating here are all the things I check. So I'll say like, hey, the application correctly sanitizes user input, resisting SQL injection and HTML injection, or et cetera, et cetera. Like you just say all the strengths of the application to show here are the things you tested, but you don't need to feel bad if you didn't find vulnerabilities. As pen testers, as consultants, we want the web apps to be secure. I mean, that's why they hire us. And often as a pen tester, your company is testing the same apps for the same companies year after year. So it could be that your team has tested this app for the past 5 years, and the client, thankfully, has applied all the remediations you suggested. So when they have a report that is rather empty, that's good news. It means they're doing a good job. All right, yeah, you guys are all getting it. Admin, admin, admin. You got it, admin. So what the heck is the admin group? Well, we can just go over to Google, and we can always do like admin Linux group. Hacktricks is an incredible resource. And we have Linux privilege escalation, and we have interesting groups. Let's go to interesting groups real quick and see what information we have here. We'll just control F admin. There's a bunch of admin stuff. Here we go. Compare with group admin, blah, blah. Admin group. Usually, members of the admin group have permissions to read log files located inside a var log. Therefore, if you have compromised a user inside this group, you should definitely take a look to the logs. So that gives us a pretty good idea of what we're looking for. And I need to realize, let's go ahead and add an hour to my machine so it doesn't expire. So the user flag, you can get that right now. I'm not going to get it for you. The root flag we can't get yet. Usernames and passwords that access the server, we can't do that yet. And 2 users have their full names on display. So we'll come back and answer these questions as we go. Besides, I'm not going to do the flags. I'll let you guys do the flags. But we are in the admin group. So that's interesting. If we go over to var/log, that's where logs are generally stored. But when we look at this, there are a lot of logs. So let me also ask you guys in chat, what do you think we should do? Like, should I manually cat all of these and find what I'm looking for? Or what is a quick way for us to parse all of these logs looking for some interesting information? Let me know in chat if you guys have an idea. Why I don't see other chat, are you streaming on another platform as well? I am, Jug Pearl, you're over on Twitch, it looks like. I'm streaming on Twitch, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So yeah, you'll see the chat as they pop up there, but you won't see them in Twitch. It looks like we have, let me check. 60, 70, 80. We have like 90 people watching right now, which is crazy across the 3 different platforms. So hello, all 90 of you. Thank you for taking the time to hang out with me. Hey, Tyler, I heard you mention it once on Simply Cyber that some companies don't do pen testing. They just deliver a Nessa scan. Please elaborate. Thanks. So, yeah, you get what you pay for when it comes to pen testing. So if you have a company and you hire a pen testing company, but they're super cheap, likely all you're going to get is that company, that pen testing company is just going to run a Nessa scan, turn it into a report, and they're going to turn it into you. Real pen testing does use Nessus, but it's very much manual research and manual exploitation, but you get what you pay for. You go for the cheapest pen testing company. Don't be surprised when the report sucks. That's all I meant by that. Grep, 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 grep. Yes, yes, yes. You guys are right. Kind of off topic, do you have some good tools for SaaS? I'm using HoruSec, but there are multiple false positives. I tried Sneak. I don't have any good recommendations for it. Sorry. People in chat might. But I've only used Sneak when I use it. But yeah, so there's a few different ways we can do this. We can do grep. IR, which is just saying, hey, search all of this recursively and ignore case sensitivity. And we can search for something like password, for example. And let's see what we have in the logs. We have this, but this is just an installer, probably not super helpful to us. Some binary files that match. Scroll up. Oh, would you look at this? Just look at it. In our access log 1, we have a GET request, login username Rose, which is who we're trying to get to, and this password right here, which might be helpful. Let's go over to our notes, and we'll add that. So we'll say like password in logs. We have this password right here, and we can go ahead and try to switch over to Rose now. And we are unsuccessful. Now, this threw me. This threw me for a loop, guys, because I was like, what? This is our password. Why does the password not work? This doesn't make any sense to me. And I was doing this room alongside of my friend Bob. Let me just show you his website, guys. It's amazing. Write-ups. So we were doing this together, like collaborating on Discord as we went through it. Let me drop his link here in chat. He seriously has some of the best write-ups I've ever read on TryHackMe and Hack the Box rooms. Really solid, genuine guy. He was here in the beginning, but he lives in Germany. It was like 3 a.m. He came to my Hack Smarter meetup at DEF CON, so I was able to hang out with him in person. We even worked on some CTFs in person at DEF CON. But super cool dude. But I was like, yo, Bob, the frick am I doing wrong? Like, I see the password there. Why does the password not work? And his hint to me was, maybe Rose made a mistake and put in the wrong password. It's like, what do you mean Rose made a mistake and put in the wrong password? And I thought, oh, maybe it's password reuse. Maybe when Rose is logging into the portal, she used a correct password, but the password was for something else. And you guys are going to laugh when you realize this. That's actually the root password. Okay. I thought it was the root password. Maybe I typed it wrong. Let's grab it. Copy. There we go. And we are logged in as the root user. So Rose is apparently an admin, but she used the wrong password here. We are now logged in as root, so we can cd over to root, ls and cat root.txt. But like I said, I'm not going to show you the flags. I want you to do the machine on your own and get the flags yourself. But if we go over to this, right, user flag, we already got that as our one user. We can get the root flag, and it says, what are the usernames and passwords that had access to the server? List the usernames in alphabetical order with their corresponding password separated by a comma. So let's go ahead and do that. Users and passwords. So we had James right here. We had the James user. We have Rose. We don't know Rose's password. And we have root, and the root user is there, and it's looking for 3 users. So we're not actually done yet, because we need to figure out what the heck is Rose's password. So let me ask you guys, what are some spots we should check for Rose's password? There's a few different ways you could do this. So one thing is, if we cat like Etsy shadow, you can see password hashes, and you could try to crack Rose's password, but there's usually easier things than that. If we just cd over to home, one helpful thing to check anytime you get access to a machine is see if you can read the user's bash history. I think James, did James have bash history? Sometimes it's going to null, so you can't read it. See, his is going to dev/null, but Rose's is right here, and it actually has some content in it, so that's worth looking at. So we can cat bash history like so, and you can see right here we have Rose's password as well. So we can drop back over to our notes, and drop in Rose's password. If we jump back over to our machine, we have the user flag. I'm not going to put it in. We have the root flag. We have the 3 usernames and passwords. And we have one final question for task 1. 2 users have their full names on display. What are their names in alphabetical order? Well, if we just cat out Etsy password, you can see this here. We have Rosebud and James Bold. So let's go ahead and just copy this. Full names. We have Rosebud and James Bold. And that brings us to the conclusion of task 1. Now, if you're following along, I encourage you to put in all of the information here. I already did this room and then I reset my progress, so I won't do it. I'll just give you guys a quick tip for those of you who enjoy streaming. Anytime you complete a room, if you go to options and reset progress, you can reset your progress. You can do walkthroughs on rooms without giving away all the flags. But I have now shown you how to get the user flag, how to get the root flag, how to get the users' names and passwords of all 3 users, and how to get the full names of the 2 users that are on display. And that is the end of task 1. We have successfully made it through the base camp. So for those of you watching after the fact on YouTube, hey, thank you for watching. Hope you learned something in the process. And I will see you in part 2 when we dive into the middle camp. I will see you guys there.